Sergey, thank you for coming.
Thank you for picking me.
Of course, of course. So
Happy
you're
to
in
talk.
Boston now, right?
Yeah,
Okay, wow. Okay, so I mean, we're doing this 20-minute leader show, and you know, I've been following you for quite some time, and it looks like you're doing such cool things at Flint Capital that I can't wait to learn a little bit more. Can you tell me a little bit more about yourself? What is Flint Capital, and what do you do as a venture capital?
sure. So first I'll talk a little bit about myself. My original background is actually technical. My first degree is computer science. And I also I moved between countries. So I was born and raised in Russia. Then I moved to Israel, lived for many years in Israel.
Where in Israel?
I was, well, all over the place. I went to university in Beersheba, but at some point I lived in Tel Aviv too, so between like Tel Aviv and Beersheba, basically. I was kind of lucky right out of university. Actually, when I was still studying in university, I joined a company called Compigen as employee number one. Compigen is one of the success stories of Israeli incubator. You can even find this story in Startup Nation book. And when I think about being employee number one, you can do a lot of different stuff. So I was doing software development there. When we needed to open an office in the States, like all founders had families. I didn't, so I was the one to go. So I moved to Boston around like more than 20 years ago. Done a bunch of stuff. I was with Compigen for more than 9 years. I've done all kind of different stuff there. Left after the IPO, a couple of years after the IPO. Been part of a bunch of different startups, more on the technical side, then kind of switched to the dark side, went to MIT, did business degree, started to do some angel investments. Yeah, and I joined Flint about 5 years ago as partner here in Boston. So Flint, we early stage fund. We do seed and A rounds. We a little bit different from most of the venture funds in a sense. What we run completely distributed shops. So with 3 partners. I'm in Boston, another one in California, a third one in Europe. We also have office in Israel, and we have principal in Israel. So we have many offices. We don't have a single office with more than 2 people in it. And one of the reasons behind this structure is what we feel, what we can bring a lot of added value to the companies from Israel and Europe when we come to US. We've helped here on the ground, we've helped with raising the next financing rounds, etc. We're on a second fund now. If you look at our portfolio, I would say it's about 50% Israel, quarter Europe, quarter US, plus or minus. We don't have specific allocation, but it just happens. And we do both B2B and B2C. We're fairly broad. We have digital health, cyber, fintech, voice tech, DevOps. If you look, it's like probably the common denominator between all these companies. They have a lot of AI in their products. I don't like to say we invest in AI because I think AI is technology. We invest in products. And right now, any product you build, it has to have some kind of AI component.
So Sergey, I'd love to hear your input. What does it mean to invest in a product rather than a technology? Because you know, I mean, I'm sitting with J Ventures now, and it's pretty common now to see in every slide deck we use AI too, and then fill in the blank, and that's just almost a given. What do you mean invest in a product and not in the technology?
So first we look at what is your product and what problem it solves, right? If there is a problem in the market and you're solving this problem in a way better way than anything out there, then it's a good product. If the market is big, it's a usual thing. Like you look at market, you look at the product, you look at competitive landscape, and AI is just another way to build your competitive advantage. Basically, especially when you have some unique data which you can build your AI on, that helps. But it doesn't mean you have to have AI. From one side, and from another side, having AI doesn't mean you're building the right product. You can build very, very interesting AI system which wouldn't have any product market fit. So what's your point of investing in?
No, but I mean, even in the context of AI, you can go and start something as simple as, just a simple logistic regression model, or you could go as far as doing, all these really complicated convolutional neural networks, and it seems like there's no differentiation today in terms of how people showcase their AI capabilities, right? They will both say they do AI. How, as an investor and a technical investor, how much do you care about the type of technology that they're using within this realm of AI?
Yeah, we care a lot actually, because what's your competitive advantage? If you're doing something which is like everybody is doing, and you don't have any proprietary data, then probably you're not going to have that much of a competitive advantage. I mean, my background is technical, so when I talk to founders, I usually tell them, you can be as technical as you want with me. I can understand, I can still write the code if I really want to. When we do due diligence, we usually bring in a lot of experts. I mean, we have bunch of companies in our portfolio. A lot of them use AI nowadays. At least several of these companies are kind of leaders in their segment, so we have access to very, very smart people, which much smarter than me, who can get and actually ask very, very pointed questions. So usually when we do due diligence on a new company, we usually would ask like CTOs of our portfolio companies or some other people in the field who really understand this very, very deeply. And if you tell us what this is really something interesting, this is really some proprietary AI, some proprietary data that people are building it differently than other people are doing it, yeah, that's an interesting proposition. From our side, if it's just another like we use AI because everybody uses AI, then it's not that interesting.
So in times of now Corona, when everybody, almost every company has to deal with this changing and evolving world of moving to distributed teams. I'm a software engineer at Hippo, and overnight we had to essentially start working remotely with 250 people, and I had the chance to do the onboarding with a company, and all of a sudden, they explained to me that on the first day you come and you get these shirts and you have a big UHA, and they had to give me that over Zoom, and they did it wonderfully, but it nevertheless was a different experience, and it requires every company to make adjustments. So your structure is already distributed, so you might feel it a little bit less, but what's happening in the VC world altogether? And then I'd love to hear about Flint Capital specifically.
So VC, it's in terms of working, I know a lot of funds are still working pretty much. VCs, usually venture fund doesn't have way many people, so it's much easier to go remote for them. For us, it's natural because we're kind of remote first. And on top of it, I worked with remote teams pretty much all my working career. I was managing teams in Israel when I was working from Boston. I was managing some outsourcing teams who I worked with. So I know how to do it. What I found useful, if you build company, what's called remote first, from a day zero, and you have now more and more companies who build that way. From a day zero, you have the remote teams. It's much easier to do it than if you would have a company which usually gets to the office and then suddenly need to go remote, because you build all your processes from the beginning. Basically, you need the difference between like working completely remotely and working from the offices, there's a lot of communication which goes on when you work in the same space. And this communication is not kind of scheduled communication. It's basically cooler talk, or somebody have a question, they just come by to your office and quickly ask question. You lose this communication when you go remote. So what you need to do, if you want to do it correctly, you need to make sure you have way more scheduled communication than usually you do. Like if you usually have one status meeting in the office a week, do 2 or 3 status meetings. Maybe shorter, but do more of them, because you need to compensate for this communication. And you need to know how to manage people remotely and all this stuff. But I think it's a huge advantage, actually, and I do expect what people after the Corona times, you will see more and more remote teams. We actually invested in one company which is completely remote first, the Ep19, one of our portfolio companies. From the beginning, we never had an office. It's like 2 founders who are in Amsterdam, and all the team is completely distributed. We don't have a single office. The team is completely distributed, and they get a lot of advantages because of that, because they can hire a person anywhere in the world, and it's very cost effective. They can get for the best talent they can find, things like that.
Sorry. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. And, GitHub, I think, is distributed from day one, and you have this surgence of companies. How do big companies deal with it that when they don't necessarily have the cloud infrastructure to do this transition, or they don't have the processes to go and handle this sort of collaborative nature of online? Because I mean, a lot of tech companies from the 90s are still around, and they don't even have a lot of these things in the cloud, right? A lot of these are on enterprise computers that are in the office.
Well, so one, you have technology which allows you to work with all these computers not on the cloud too. So you have all kind of VPNs. Actually, we just invested in a company. Well, I guess by the time this webcast will go live, it will be announced, so I can talk about it. We just invested a week ago. We closed a deal, company called Sayola. It's an Israeli cybersecurity company, early stage. We led the round, and they allow you to access your services, your applications from anywhere. It doesn't matter you're in the cloud or your application in the cloud on servers. It doesn't matter if you're in local network or you're somewhere remotely. You can access the service without VPN, without complication. It's very easy way, very secure way. So you have tools like that, which you can use to access the system. Obviously, when you have a big company which is working a certain way, it's a challenge. The more agile environment allows you to do it much, much easier. But I think by now, at least in high tech, I think even the biggest and oldest companies in high tech, we still already working with some remote teams. So we have some kind of infrastructure in place. It's still challenge, but I think it's more organizational challenge than technology challenge, because technology is there. You can go remote today very easily.
So you closed the deal last week. Are you still actively looking for deals in general all over the same way that you looked at them before, or are you now much more focused on things that would make sense in this new light of the working environment because of Corona?
It's actually funny. We're working the same way we worked before. It's actually funny because somehow in like last month and the next month, we're going to close several deals. More deals when we closed in the last half a year. It's not because it's on a purpose, it just happens. When we see a good company and we like it and we want to invest, we're investing. So we just closed 2 deals within last couple of weeks, and there are a couple deals in the works. One term sheet is signed, another one is term sheet out.
Wow.
So we actually probably in this month we probably will be even more active in terms of like deal number. But in general, for us, it doesn't really matter. I don't think we're working the same we worked before.
Yeah.
And if we see good companies, we're going to invest. I think in general, we will see a slowdown. If you want kind of my feeling, what will happen in VC world, you will see some slowdown because a lot of funds probably will kind of take, let's sit it out a little bit approach and see what's going on. Too much uncertainty, things are moving too fast and you don't understand what's going on. I think, I would guess within the next couple months, a lot of funds will kind of wait and see. Then they will start investing, but I think the pace of investments in VC world will slow down because one of the problems we're probably going to have, which is more long-term kind of problem, is I would expect within the next year or 2 years, we'll have way less money going into venture funds, just from LP side. For different reasons, not really related to VC, but like think about, let's say you have a family office which have $100 million to invest, and your VC allocation is 5%, which means $5 million, and your stock market allocation is like 70% of this probably. That's kind of in a ballpark. Now think about your 70% now shrink to about 50 million.
Yeah.
So your VC allocation suddenly became from 5%, like 7% or 8%. What it means, what for the next year until it gets to the 5%, you're probably not going to put any money into VC.
Right.
And what's going to happen in a lot of institutional LPs? Our institutional LPs will take less risky approach. Also, if I would have to guess, stock market probably going to get better returns in like next 3 or 5 years just because it's kind of crashed.
Yeah.
So when you kind of compare returns in stock market and VC world, if stock market is getting better returns, you probably put more money into the stock market. So because of all these issues, I would expect to see less money going from institutional side into venture funds, which means on a venture fund side, it takes you longer to raise your next round. You kind of expect what instead of like usual cycle raising the next fund in 2 to 3 years, it may take a lot of funds longer time to raise the next fund. So it means what the current fund, we're gonna probably drag a little bit to make sure we have money to invest.
Right.
Instead of like in 2 years, we're gonna drag the same money for like 3 years, 4 years.
Makes sense.
So I would guess what you will see a little bit of kind of slowing down. It's hard to say if it's going to be like 50% drop or 30% drop or 20% drop, but I would expect to see some of that at least.
No. It's fascinating. You know, I mean, so I'm at Stanford now, and I remember when I was trying to decide whether to go and pursue an academic degree in computer science or to build my own company, one of the things that I kept hearing was, this is the best time to build a company. You know, there's so many interested VCs. There's not enough entrepreneurs that are working on really meaningful problems. One of the things I'm interested in is working on some large scale products for developing areas. And you know, all of a sudden, you know, 8 months into my degree and the Corona breaks out. So I feel like I won a little bit.
Well, on the good side, if you think about it, I think the good companies are still going to get enough of venture capital attention. If you think about it, the best 2008 was a great year for starting a company. If you can get your investment.
I saw this a couple of times. Why is that?
Because think about this way. If the economy isn't down and you just starting your company, you're gonna ride the whole wave of the economy going up. So if you start a company in 2008, you get to the scale up part somewhere around 2009, 2010. You build your company, you're starting, you're testing your ideas. And in 2009, by the time the economy is starting to go up, your company is ready to scale. So you get this wave from the very beginning, and you ride it all to the top. And you have time to exit until the wave is done. So that's kind of the best way to build your company. Now, it's harder to get investment in 2008, so it's harder to raise money. But if you're building something really unique and something interesting, it's the best time. So it will be harder to start company if it's something like in the middle. Like if you're trying to build company which is gonna be sold for less than $100 million, it's probably gonna harder to do it.
Yeah.
But to build a really big company, to build really interesting kind of breakthrough company, it's the best time because you're gonna ride the whole wave.
So the funnel is narrower, so it's harder to get started. But those that do get started, they have the economic advantage of being on the up and coming wave of economics. Yeah.
Well, again, you need to find this product market fit by the time everything goes up. Right. Because if at the time everything goes up, you have this product market fit, you just scale it, and rising tides help all the ships. So
definitely. Sergey, before we leave, I need 3 words that describe you.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Well, I guess curious and founders friendly, I know.
I love it. Okay, so I'm gonna say curious, founder friendly, and then curious, and then founder friendly. So I'll do both combinations. Sergey, thank you very much.
Thank you. It was fun.
Stay safe and healthy.
Yeah, you too.